Hello friends, welcome back. So I am recording this on Christmas Day. So I want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday season, and I hope you're enjoying today and everything this season has to offer. I know it's been a rough year, and we're all making it through. So this episode, Sukkot, or as it was previously known, the Citadel, it's the episode that we've been waiting for the last couple weeks. So the last two episodes was the two-parter Terra Firma Part 1, Terra Firma Part 2, which followed Giorgio into her exploits in the mirror universe, creating possibly a separate mirror universe, or if it was just kind of like a tapestry test to see exactly where she fit in the multiverse and timeline. So we ended up saying goodbye to Emperor Giorgio. So this episode takes place right as the previous one left off, right in the middle of her memorial service. So during this memorial service, they end up getting the information that there is a life form in the ship that was sending out this distress signal from the nebula, from what they have determined the origin of the burn is based on the information that they have. So they find the life signs in that ship, and then Saru speculates that it is a Kelpian, which makes sense. I mean, we know this is a Kelpian ship, but this was a Kelpian child, or at least a Kelpian that was born shortly after the distress call was sent. Well, how does Saru know this? Well, because the distress call, it was a woman, and she has weird red dots on her head, and it was speculated, okay, well, she's suffering from some of the radiation. That's what those red dots are. And then Saru comes out with that no, that's a sign of pregnancy in Kelpian women. And I really kind of like that, there was actually some kind of payoff to that. Hey, what you think is happening is not what's happening, because it did seem to. Oh, why would they even make a point of that in the previous episodes? That there's some red marks on her head, it's obviously from radiation, and then there seems to be kind of like a close in on Saru, and so it seemed like he knows better of what's going on. It's not just a radiation, so that's good. It's good. So I like that, things are hinted at and followed up on. So how is this Kelpian still alive if there is this is just like a massive radiation going on? I don't think that they would have that kind of medication or whatever, for 125 years or so, how long this Kelpian has been there. Well, a couple things. The Kelpian is stuck in a part of the ship where the radiation is minimal. I mean, it's still not good, but it's less than what it would be anywhere else. And also, it seems to be that this Kelpian had developed some defenses, biological defenses from just being in utero in this environment. Which you could say whether that makes sense or not, whatever. That's just kind of neither here nor there. That's how they're explaining it in the story. And as a result, we end up finding out, or at least it's strongly hinted at. I mean, there may be more details that come out in the next two episodes of how the burn happened. So the part of the ship where this Kelpian is living is actually a holodeck portion, which is really great in that we get to see a lot of confusion, and we get to see kind of like what the heck's going on, and we get to understand a little bit how this young Kelpian, I mean, it's 125 years old, at least at this point, was able to survive just being by itself with the holodeck that's severely degrading, and everything that's alive, or not alive, but the holographic characters are, they're destabilizing and things like that. And so we really get a lot of a big heroes and demons, that Star Trek Voyager episode vibe from what's going on here. We're kind of led to believe that there is some kind of creature that is posing a huge danger. It actually ends up turning out that this creature isn't really a danger, but this is just kind of part of the program, which is supposed to be teaching this young Kelpian a lesson in facing your fears. But in doing this, facing its fear, it ends up letting out a strange scream siren type thing, which is another defense mechanism that this thing developed, being in this nebula thing and in conjunction with this dilithium planet. So it's a kind of a weird kind of thing where if it lets out this scream, it sends out the shockwave that completely destabilizes and inerts the dilithium. So some fans have taken an issue with that being the explanation for the burn. Honestly, I think it's really cool. I like that we can come up with something that is like not a villain of the week kind of thing, because it always seems like Star Trek always just loves to have its villain. But sometimes things just happen because they happen, or this was a complete accident, or this is completely unintentional, or the person or thing or circumstance in which this happened was completely on accident. So much of the season, we were kind of led on a mystery, thinking that whoever did this had intentions of destroying the Federation or whatever, because I was almost kind of leaning towards that maybe this emerald chain thing was actually involved, and they were trying to destroy a lot of ships to create a graveyard of ships. And I was thinking that was kind of the case, and that we would find out that Osiris people, the Orions and everything like that, like this was completely something that they were responsible for. And I'm glad that that's not really the case. And it's almost turning out like the Emerald Chain, yes, after this episode, they have taken over Discovery, and looks like that they are going to be taking over Starfleet headquarters, or at least that seems to be what the next episode is going to be about. I think it's going to turn out that the Emerald Chain is simply just going to be, they're bad actors, sure, but not completely bad actors, where they can see that, okay, Discovery figured out what caused the burn. There's this dilithium planet where there's a lot of dilithium there that, well, there's plenty to go around. I mean, if they could safely get to this planet, it could be mined for like the whole powers that be. I think that they'll probably end up coming to a realization that everyone's going to be better off working together. It's just kind of what the Federation ideals are. So just to recap a little bit, we find out that there's a life form on the ship inside this nebula where the distress call was. We go there. We find out that it is the Kelpian that's been there by itself, and it's got a very childlike mind because it's never interacted with any other person, and we're led to believe that one of its defense mechanisms that it ended up developing in utero, at least we're assuming it's in utero, is what caused the burn. What happened with the Emerald Chain, they ended up taking over Discovery. Which is really something that Admiral Vance seemed to be a little like he kind of predicted that, I think, because it seemed like they knew that if Book was going to plug in Emerald Chain technology into the ship, it very well could alert the Emerald Chain to Discovery's movements. And I think that's probably part of what happened. He seemed very wary about leaving Tilly in charge, which is Saru's number one. And I can't blame him, because this is one of those things where I love Tilly, but you can like love someone and think they're a great officer while also knowing that they're not ready for the position they're in, especially like something so important. And this was also supposed to emphasize that Saru was emotionally compromised by the mission at hand, and that has been brought up and hinted at, and Admiral Vance knew it. I'm wondering if Vance is thinking I should have listened to my gut, or if he thinks that there would be no real consequences to what happened with the chain. There could be thoughts either way, because what I'm thinking is that they actually were never at Federation HQ or Starfleet HQ, which that's kind of a side tangent where it seems like the Federation and Starfleet are used interchangeably, and they might be one and the same in this time period. Basically, the military is running the government, which actually could be very well possible, but that's another discussion. So I'm thinking that part of the lackadaisical, like, I'm not going to push too hard, that we're having an ensign captaining the ship while the captain and other most high-ranking officer are going to go into this nebula where they're going to potentially not make it out. So my thoughts are that if Admiral Vance only gave limited pushback, that he wasn't necessarily that concerned. What I would have liked to have seen was that he kind of like what happened with the in the first episode where Discovery got to go on a mission where somebody from Starfleet headquarters ended up joining Discovery, which I think that would probably been more worthwhile. But also at the same time, they're really setting this up to be a kind of a Tilly arc where we needed to see that she could captain. And, I don't think anything that happened was something that she did wrong. I mean, the Emerald Chain completely beamed through their shields, which I don't know if is a nitpick or inconsistency or not. I mean, they might have technology that shields are irrelevant to transporters. I mean, that could be the development. But, in the Star Trek mythos, that has never been consistent, contrary to what you're kind of going to see on message boards about random things. They're going to act like that Discovery is the first one that's ever been inconsistent with Star Trek canon. It's kind of weird. I'm just really hoping that they're not using this scenario to give Tilly a black eye when she was really set up to fail by Saru, by Burnham, by Admiral Vance, kind of being put into a position too quickly. And she did everything right. It was just a bad situation. I mean, hindsight is 2020. So hindsight would have probably been that they jump right away. They really did choreograph what was going on by sticking around waiting for the away team when they couldn't do anything about that at that point anyway. So kind of jumping back to whether it was the Federation headquarters or whatever probably would have been a smarter move. But she ended up waiting until it was too late. The Emerald Chain ends up beaming on board, takes over Stamets, And they already had the coordinates set for the Federation or Starfleet headquarters, and then the rest we're going to find out next week. So we end up with Saru still on the ship, Culber still on the ship, and Burnham ends up going back with Book, who ends up going to get them in his little ship, and Adira, who ends up beaming down to the ship. So it's really just Book and Burnham that are flying back to the Discovery, and end up finding out that, well, shoot, the Discovery was taken over. So we're going to see kind of what happens from there. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode and everything that they did with it. This was the episode I'd been waiting for. The one that I wanted to see 2 weeks ago. Instead, we got the Terra Firma two-parter, which in hindsight wasn't bad, but when it felt like it put the brakes on this season mystery, it felt really weird and out of place, and I didn't like it at the time, but there were a couple good episodes, really. So, yeah, those are my thoughts, and I'm curious to hear yours. Thank you.